Now, there's been a lot of drama happening behind the scenes over at Disney regarding Snow White 2024, also known simply as the Snow White live-action remake, all due in part to the plans ahead for the official trailer to drop at the D23 event that kicks off, I believe it is on September 9th, and that's going to be something that really is not only going to create more backlash, without a doubt, but we also have the fact that there are a lot of board members at Disney really kind of arguing with each other on whether or not they want to stick with those plans to release the trailer on the 9th or the 10th of the D23 event and that overall span of time. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, we know that Snow White is basically a slow-moving train wreck. There is no doubt about this. Now, there's been a lot of conversations happening between the board and Bob Iger on quite possibly delaying Snow White until the summer of 2024. Same exact kind of discussions were happening for the Marvels that never really progressed as of yet, where they wanted to delay that film until January and or February from their November 10th release. So it will be quite interesting to see, what their decision is going to be and how it's going to impact the trailer release. They will be finding out more about this in the next couple of days, so stay tuned on that. But let's get into exactly what's going on with Snow White director Marc Webb. You most know him from The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, as well as 500 Days of Summer. So, with Disney currently doing much damage control with Snow White 24, one major development has to do with Bob Iger and the board of directors that finalized the cancellation of Snow White projects as a result of the backlash getting so bad for the 2024 film, and how this negatively impacts Marc Webb. As it turns out, Disney was set to announce 2 Snow White prequel movies and a direct sequel that would make up a Snow White cinematic universe. The 2 prequel films were cancelled earlier in August. However, the sequel that was set to feature Rachel ZEGLER and the return of the Evil Queen in a brand new fashion was completely cancelled and axed from Disney's current slate. Bob Iger's cost containment plan also held a role in leading to the removal of this film that was going to serve as a sequel that would take elements from the Happily Ever After 1989 animated film with a spin. The sequel that was cancelled was set to focus on the 7 dwarfs' cousins, called the Dwarfs, all of which have magical powers, just like their cousins. Disney's pitch with Marc Webb before he was fired from Disney essentially was he was going to bring back the Evil Queen through resurrection from her evil brother that was going to be inspired from Lord Malice. Now, of course, a whole new treatment was created by Marc Webb, and the cancellation of this project and the 2 prequel films is what led to Webb getting into conflicts with Disney and losing any chance to create another film with them again, as Disney fired him and dropped him from all projects in general. Now guys, let me just pause here quick. So, you may or may not know anything about Happily Ever After 1989. This was a Snow White iteration created by 20th Century Studios back in 1989, and they got into conflicts with Disney. I believe Disney might have even sued 20th Century Studios, correct me on that, but there was a big conflict in there regardless. And Disney was not quite happy about how that story was made, and the fact that it was even made. But in there, we know that Lord Malice was the evil brother of the Evil Queen. And so, basically, Marc Webb and Disney, they were actually grouping together, pitching things for the sequel to bring back the Evil Queen and to actually introduce the evil brother in a very specific new way. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that just sounds utterly ridiculous to me. I think that they should just keep with the original 1937 storyline where the Evil Queen meets her demise, and that's it. You call it a day. That's her demise. So, there's a bigger issue at hand, though. We know that Disney's cost containment plan is wreaking havoc at Marvel Studios, at Lucasfilm, and just Disney in general. Things are not looking bright right now, and for Marc Webb, he's basically out of work. I mean, this guy really hasn't had a very big project to work on in a very long time, except for Snow White. Anything moving onwards is all, low-level stuff for television, nothing really big. And so him losing this major Disney deal due to the ongoing 24 backlash, the Snow White 24 backlash, it just goes to show you that Disney's pulling the trigger and they're getting very worried, you know, about what this movie is going to become once it releases in theaters. And like I said earlier in this video, don't be too surprised that they delay this trailer or let alone delay the entire film. These conversations are happening. They're beginning to get very, not so confident, so to speak, for showcasing the trailer at D23. I believe they did this also for The Little Mermaid. When they showcased it, it got a lot of criticism at their D23 of 2022. I believe it was the teaser. But moving onwards, they, however, let go of Marc Webb before they cancelled all 3 Snow White projects, and they were seeking a new director to take over the sequel. After Webb was fired by Disney due to them using him as a scapegoat behind the scenes for the Disney deal with him would never have worked anyway, as it would have created wider issues with the sequel and the prequels coming after the backlash of Snow White. Webb is now trying to reason with Disney and trying to convince them to reinstate Snow White projects that were cancelled and his Disney deal to no avail. Now, look, say what you will about Marc Webb. I don't know if you guys liked the Amazing Spider-Mans 1 and 2. I never really was heavily into them. Just a little too distant from the traditional Spider-Man, in my opinion. That's just my take on things. But Marc Webb, you know, the fact that he lost his Disney deal, he got the boot by Disney, they don't want anything to do with him anymore moving onwards, and their whole cinematic universe plan for Snow White fell apart. Not just because of him, but we also covered this earlier in August. Gal Gadot actually played a very big role in this. She was supposed to be in the 2 prequel movies as one of the main leads, as the evil queen, you know, showcasing her origin story, etc., etc. She walked away. Turns out she did not sign a contract. It was all up in the air conversations, but she walked away, and that's when those 2 projects fell apart and created a domino effect for the sequel for Snow White 2024. So, at the end of the day, we know that Disney does not know what to do with their live-action material. There's no doubt about it that when you look at everything related to Snow White 2024, is that this film is going to be an atrocity. It may very well be the worst film of all time by Disney. Maybe even the worst film of all time. You know, that might be a bit of a stretch, but I think that it very well will be the lowest box office performance for a Disney live-action remake. I think that's just a given at this point. You know, it might even do worse than Cats. Even though that's not a Disney thing, that might very well be on par with that film. It's very, very possible. So, I would love to hear what everyone out there has to say about the whole Marc Webb situation, about the cinematic universe that fell apart slowly but surely over time, and basically how it led to Marc Webb losing his Disney deal and getting the boot. So anyway, guys, you know, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.
From night to moon we